fight for our nation. So I appreciate the fact that I can spend a little bit more time tonight kind of telling you kind of who I am, what I believe, talk about the opposite of it, the plan, why it's different than anybody else out there. And I told Eileen specifically, I talk about how it affects you personally, this office. So, Elaine, sorry. There you go. All right, starting out here. I believe that power and service in government is best closest to the people. Don't you guys agree with me there? Those like Chad know what's best in his district versus the state or the nation. Right? I believe that those that know you, your neighbor, actually are better able to serve you, meet the needs of your neighbors. Okay? I believe that if we drive more of that power and service and support down at the local level, we're better off as people. And that's the way our founding fathers thought it was as well. So where does this come from? I grew up in Quincy. You guys know where Quincy is? Okay. East Wenatchee and Grand Coulee Dam. So 3 small towns in eastern Washington. Okay. I graduated from Grand Coulee Dam. My high school class was 92 kids. Okay, a little small. But so I earned my Eagle Scout. And at small town values, they call them word about keeping your word, finishing what you started, giving your all, and loving your neighbor. Those are American values. Those are values here in Bellevue as well, right? But those are values that I learned and that are ingrained in me. But even the Eagle Scout, they say that there are less than 1% of those that go in scouting actually get their Eagle Scout. Less than 1/10 of 1% actually get it before 18. I got mine at 15. That's what you do in small towns. That's what you do with your neighbors. There's some things that you learn from that. You learn things like trustworthiness, loyalty, bravery, the fact that the love of nation, love of the state. So ever since I've been a lifetime Western resident, all across the state. Went to UW for school, worked and living in Carver right now, raising my 3 kids. This state's amazing. We have so much going for us. And yet what happens? We have government getting in the way too many times, over-regulating, over-taxing, basically stopping and telling us no, as Bill Bryant says, a culture of no. Well, if we would just actually get back and get off the backs of our businesses and our families, we'd be fine. So part of my goal is to do that. Beyond that, I went to school, like I said, to be a doctor. Did not make that. I was an anesthesia tech for 13 years. Worked in open heart surgery all around this region. Literally lived just about everywhere in Puget Sound at one point in time. Roommates or you name it. So I entered into real estate afterwards. In the last 17 years, been selling real estate. Now, that helps you when you lived everywhere. You kind of know the neighborhoods. It's easy to work with people and sell real estate. I've actually managed 5 offices of Prudential, trained over 150 agents. So in dealing with people, negotiating contracts, and doing that kind of stuff. Over the last little over a year now, Doug and I have been doing a radio show in Seattle called Eyes on Washington, and where we've been able to talk to anywhere from 50 and 70,000 people on a daily basis about how important it is for you to get involved in your neighborhood, in your community, how you have a God-given gift where you can make a difference right where you are. That it doesn't take some special talent or special gifting or special education. You have what's needed right there. And that's part of our problem from a state level is not enough people are involved in the process. We have a group of people that are elected or appointed, making all our decisions for us and telling us this is what's best for you. And that doesn't work anywhere, right? So, like I said, I have 3 kids. My oldest is 19, my middle is 14, my youngest is 12. Logan, Faith, and Grace. Biggest job in the world for me is raising my kids, but I want to leave a future for them. When I ran for office the first time in 2010 for state senate, I told the people then, I said, my son went through 2 bouts of leukemia. My daughter was his donor, and he fought to keep his life. I said, if he can fight that hard to stay alive, I'm going to fight just as hard or more to make sure that he has a future to be alive for. Amen? Okay. So let's talk about building a house. Since I'm a realtor by trade, part of this thing too is when you think about a house, what's the most important thing in a house? Foundation, right? If your foundation is crumbling, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how nice the house is. So what's the foundation of our state? Foundation, we know from the national level and a local level, state level, is Judeo-Christian values. Bottom line, there's a bedrock which we put the basis on. Then you have the state constitution, which came first, then the U.S. Constitution, not time-wise, but priority and importance, paramount. So you have a foundation that you build upon. Then you have the footings. For me, and personally for this office, the footings have to be truth, right? Because without truth, we have nothing, right? Even though our Supreme Court says that truth in politics is not necessary, in fact, lying is okay. It's not okay, right? Justice. If we don't have equal justice, we don't enforce the laws equally. We also have corruption in a society where we can't get along, right? Okay? Liberties. If we can't enjoy the freedoms that were protected by the Constitution, given to us by God, what good are we? How much freedom do we actually have? We get more and more that's being eroded from us in our property rights, in our way, whatever we do, our school, our education, and so forth. And lastly, the fourth for me has to be the golden rule. That's why my campaign and the office will be based on the golden rule, treating one another as we want to be treated. If you change the culture of government, you change everything. They've talked about earlier about when the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate became Republican. What changed? Nothing changed, right? Because the culture didn't change. You didn't change the attitude. So and the idea. If you start doing, I always talk about this. People have three basic needs. They want to be heard, respected, and valued. When's the last time you felt heard, respected, and valued by your government? Never, right? But I mentioned this too, I'll go on later on this, but a friend of mine who's an ambassador to the UN, he also runs a thing called Golden Rule International, which I'm a World Peace Ambassador through that. As basically, he is the chair of the Interfaith Council for the United Nations. Basically, he's a Christian guy. And his whole thing he does is he 32 different nations have brought him in, prime ministers and whatever, and said, help us. We've got corruption, we've got voter fraud, we've got bad economy, whatever. What do we do? He goes, start with the Golden Rule. When they implement just the one thing in government, things start changing, corruption goes away, because people start going, hey, I feel valued, I feel respected, I feel heard. We're going to hold people accountable, which is where we start. That's why it's foundational. On top of that comes the duties of the Lieutenant Governor. We've talked before, I'm going to go over them a little bit more today, but then I'm going to add to it and tell you specifically how it affects you. Lieutenant Governor fills in for the governor when the governor's out of the state or unavailable. Currently, it's about 90 days a year, so 1/4 of every year so far, over the last 20 years, it's been Lieutenant Governor has the full power and authority of the governor. Beyond that, you preside over the Senate. Okay, that's important because you help things go in a proper and orderly fashion, hopefully getting done on time, and no more special sessions, right? Okay. Beyond that, the Lieutenant Governor chairs the Economic Development Committee, chairs the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee, where every piece of legislation comes to the floor, comes to rules first. Chad talked about, not allowing the Democrats to move legislation through, right? Lieutenant Governor's that first stop. When you're chairing that committee, you say, okay, we're not going to hear this today, we're going to put it aside or not. It's your first step before you even come to the floor for a vote. In addition to that, though, the Lieutenant Governor appoints to 41 different boards and committees, which is important. But beyond, I want to talk about some of those committees in a second. The Lieutenant Governor breaks all ties. In a Senate that now has a one-person majority and coalition, hopefully a two-person majority this next election, and the House, how many times do you think there might be a tie? Pretty awesome, right? When the issues we're facing, whether it be political or financial or even social, when it comes down to some of these issues like the bathroom issue, so these are important issues. You want the right person to be able to be the tie-breaking vote, which I am a voting member of that committee, I would be. So in addition to that, there's the State Capital Committee, the State Finance Committee, the Washington Healthcare Facilities Board, Washington Higher Ed Committee, Medal of Valor Committee, and so on. Those are boards I sit on and vote on, which is as of this. In addition to that, though, other boards that I point to, State Building Code Council, Financial Industry, Public-Private, Joint Administrative Rules and Review, Legislative Ethics Board, State Investment Board, these are just a few of them I'm pointing out, Education Network Board, Community Economic Revitalization Board, and on and on and on, Energy Supply, Statute, but there's Veterans and Military Affairs, Housing. You think about these things. These are councils where they have a vote and they have a position that affects your everyday life. I brought the Building Council because of my background in real estate. We fight property rights issues all the time. I sat for 3 years on legislative steering board in Washington for the realtors, fighting things like wells. Like up north, we're trying to tax your wells, like meter your wells. You have a private well on your property, which you shouldn't have to do. It's something they're trying to do. In Eastern Washington, they're taking away their conservation rights by giving them a stipend, so to speak, saying, hey, you're struggling as a rancher or a farmer, let's give you a little bit of money, but now you can't use your property for any other use, and you can't pass it on to your heirs. There are things like that affect every one of us. What you can build on your property starts from the Building Council at the state level, which the Lieutenant Governor points to that. And then how to solve the problem at the local level, I'll give an example specifically, is in Tacoma, Pierce County used to be one of the worst in the state as far as permitting processes go. Okay? So How do you fix that? So they brought in a private industry, parametrics, who does like a Six Sigma type thing. They said, let us help you out. They streamlined it and cut it from months to weeks, and they were improving the process day by day because they're taking private practice principles and put it in government. One of those beliefs of mine is that you have to go to the people that actually know what's going on. When Carly Fiorina was running for president, I think we all know that, she said that the federal government was 7 generations behind technology-wise because they weren't investing, right? Why aren't we going to the people that actually have the experience in the business community for business solutions? Why aren't we going to the tech community and saying, help us, work out with education, help us, get our government to the place where it's fiscally responsible, but also cutting edge, right? Go back here. Everything I've done in life, from being in real estate, I didn't talk about it too, pastoring church, growing up as an Eagle Scholar, in healthcare, it's all about relationship. And Lieutenant Governor is all about relationship. It's about negotiating with both sides. It's about having a big picture view of the state. It's about having solutions that work, but it's a voting member to get things done that makes sense. Okay? It's about when there's an argument between sides about how to get things done. Lieutenant Governor is called to do that. Lieutenant Governor is called to negotiate and to work on trade, going to different nations, different states, to receiving ambassadors. The idea of promoting Washington State. How about someone who actually loves the state, actually has lived all over the state, actually has experience in different industries to actually champion the state? I think it's a good idea, right? Okay, I want to talk about a couple specific things that are different. I see this office so different than anybody else does. There are a boatload, like I think Doug says, there's 300 different candidates, but there are actually 11, right? So, of that though, the only one that has a plan for the office and a viewpoint for the office is myself. Right. I'm the only conservative in the race. I'm the only one that's not afraid to say it, and know that it comes down to a value thing where we change the culture by treating each other the way we want, but there's a chance to do so much more. In this state, one of the things too is, how every federal agency, every state agency has a budget, and at the end of the year, if they don't spend their money, they lose it, okay? So it's kind of, you incentivize what you get, right? You get what you incentivize. So right here, you're incentivizing spending. So at the end of the year, every state agency, my work for L&I, they're buying reams of paper. They're buying reams of whatever just to spend the money so they don't lose their budget. Working with Mark Malosha, who's going to be our next state auditor, and myself, and Bill Bryant, who's going to be our next governor, we're going to, that's right. We're going to fix the budget. Say, you know what? Let's just fix it. For the next 2 to 4 years, your budget's fixed. You can't lose it no matter what you do. Period. Okay? However, for every dollar you save through cost-saving innovations or not spending money that you don't have to spend, still providing service confirmed by the auditor afterwards, make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, 10% goes back to the employees as a bonus. This is not extra money, it's just reallocated money. 20% goes back to those unpaid pensions that we haven't paid for years and years and years. And then 70% we can tie towards education or any other pet project you want. It's common sense, but we haven't had enough of that. That's why you need a lieutenant governor that can work with both sides and say, this makes sense. It's not new money, it's just reallocated money that we don't have to worry about. Right, Glenn? All right. Number 2, 3M. One of the things we're working with several municipalities around the station, I should say, are trying this. When you go into communities like this in Bellevue, right, you get the people that are leaders in local government. You get the leaders that are in local business leaders, and you get the leaders of churches, those that affect every person's life on every different sphere, and say, get your people together, let's identify the 5 things that Bellevue wants to address. Okay? Is there an educational solution for business? Is there a business solution for schools or traffic or whatever? Identify those 5 things we can do. If there's a government regulation or rule in the way, that's where I come in as Lieutenant Governor. So you know what? Senate, Governor, this is what Bellevue wants to fix their own problems. The people of Bellevue have gotten together and come up with these solutions. Let's help them out. Much more driving power back down to the local level. Number 3, I want to share a couple with you here. Bill Bryant talks about reinventing the last 2 years of high school. You guys heard that before? Okay. My brother runs the West Coast version of the Millwright program. I am a big fan of giving more school choice, more opportunity, and expecting more of our kids so they can be more competitive in a world environment. Our kids should be much better prepared than they are, even with great schools. I live in Gig Harbor. Gig Harbor's got great schools. But if you compare their results to homeschool kids, still not good. We have to give them more opportunity. But part of this, though, when Bill Bryant says that 1 in 4 ninth grade boys don't graduate, sure, they're bored. He talks about how 1 in 4 go to college, will have AP classes, 1 in 4 go to community college, get a running start. But the rest of them, though, let's start the pre-apprenticeship programs in high school so that when they graduate, they're 2 years into it, and they're 2 years away from having a good, high-paying job. Right. I know as a millwright, yeah, my brother, they were begging for people to join West Coast Wise. They start off at $20 an hour, and they go up to $50 an hour, and they're working the entire time. That's a good job, and you can provide for your family for that. Two last things. Two things are very important: property rights and veterans. Property rights, part of our school and education too. I'll be fighting for and advocating for you guys. Anybody know about the American Lands Council? There's a movement across this nation to restore federally run forest lands back to the state-run forest lands. Okay, the state-run forest lands, for every dollar we invest, taxpayer dollars, we get $18 in return. We do a pretty good job. Even this state does a good job. Okay, for every I know it's amazing. We can do better. Okay. But for every dollar we spend through the federal government to run federally run state lands, public lands, we lose 18 cents on every dollar. Okay, so there's a movement constitutionally they're required to return. It's part of the things I will fight for with our Senate is to restore those lands to us because those dollars go to education. So if we want to increase money for education, we restore the forest lands to state-run lands. Okay, and lastly, as far as what I want to do and what I will do, is we have way too many homeless veterans and way too many veterans in the state that fall through the cracks. We've got a number of military bases that supply a great resource economically for us, and we've got a huge amount of retirees coming here that are veterans. And yet our VA care, our homelessness, our PTSD issues are huge. One of those things, they've got a building in Tacoma that's sitting empty. That a guy that works for the shelter there has been working for years trying to get a place to get them off the street, get them care, and get them back into society. And they've been bought at every turn. From this level, you can work on a bipartisan level and say, we can fix this, and we will fix this. All right. The rest of the house, of course, goes up. Duties, education, traffic, economy, community, all that kind of stuff are very, very important. And I'll be working on those, but I know that as you go out as the ambassador to the state and for the state, you can be a champion and encourage people in every community, like we do on the radio every day, but also at every point in time out of session, is saying, you know what, you matter, you can make a difference, get out, get engaged, I'll help you, let's empower local communities to solve the problems. We'll have the Senate be encouraged and have a backbone because they have a strong leader with Bill Bryant and myself. And I'll finish with this. I have M&Ms over here. I say this only because around the state, I've been to about 30 counties out of 39 so far. I'm still going. It's a big state. And they usually have about 30 speakers each time you go. It's not quite 30, but there's 8 or 9 speakers each time you go. And they go, I like that guy. What was his name? So I always go, remember M&M's, Marty McClendon, running for lieutenant governor, right? Oh, so it's that timekeeper. So I've been back to the place and they go, I don't remember your name, I remember the M&M bag, so it's a good thing for you, right?
Even there's.
So I go, doesn't matter, as long as you have them when you're voting. Right here, too, only 1%, like Eagle Scout, of peanuts actually make it in this peanut M&M, so 1%.
It's got your eyes.
And so I'm doing everything possible to win this race for our communities, for our kids, and for the next generation. And of course, I'm playing on the whole superhero logo thing as well. The logos around here on the things. So it's truth, justice, liberty, and golden rule. Thank you very much, and God bless.